Today I'm going to show how to install a Forge Motorsport cold air intake and turbo inlet pipe on a Veloster N or i30N. I will also show clips of what the intake sounds like during drive-bys in each drive mode and with the hood open, again in each drive mode. The tools you'll need for this install include long nose pliers, a 10mm socket with extension, Phillips and flathead screwdrivers, swivel joint socket adapter, and a 5mm Allen key. This is my wife's first performance modification on her 2022 Hyundai Veloster N. More mods to come. To begin the install, you'll need to remove three 10mm bolts holding the factory airbox in place. All three bolts are easy to see and reach. You will need a socket extension to reach these bolts. After the three bolts have been removed, you'll need to remove two plastic push pins holding the intake air duct to the front of the car. To remove these pins, push the center and pull up on the plastic pins. The diverter pipe needs to be removed from the intake. This can be done by using a pair of long nose pliers to move the factory hose clamp. After the hose clamp has been moved, you can pull the pipe off the intake. Now move to the back of the intake and remove the two breathe hoses the same way you just removed the diverter pipe. Once both of these hoses have been removed, you need to loosen the hose clamp with a 10mm socket. After the clamp has been loosened, you can remove the whole intake assembly as one unit. With the factory air intake removed, go back to the diverter hose and remove it from the vehicle. You will need to remove another hose clamp using a pair of long nose pliers. I found this hose to be particularly difficult to remove. Be careful not to damage the diverter valve the hose is attached to. Once the factory diverter hose has been removed, you can install the Forge diverter hose by reversing the steps required to remove the factory hose. Next, remove the factory engine cover. To do this, simply pull up on the engine cover. You'll need to remove one of the engine cover bolts using a 10mm socket. The one you must remove is located towards the driver's side, closest to the front of the car. The bolt was easy to remove. At this point, I began installing the turbo inlet tube. If you were not installing the turbo inlet tube at this time, you can attach the filter inlet adapter to the intake tube to prepare the intake for final installation. Since I did install the turbo inlet tube, I will continue with the installation instructions regarding this part. By installing the turbo inlet tube, you will be adding a bit of difficulty to the installation process. Begin by locating the three 10mm bolts holding the factory turbo inlet tube to the turbo. One is easy to access at the top of the tube. The other two are located on the lower sides of the tube. I would suggest getting the two side bolts out first, as these two are harder to get out. The top bolt can help you hold the pipe in place while you get the other two bolts out. There is a factory gasket that will need to be reused. You do not want to fall into the engine bay. This is where a swivel joint socket will come in handy. If you have a magnetic socket, that would be the best, but it is not necessary as long as you are careful. I didn't show much of getting these two bolts out due to how much my wife and I were both working together to get the bolts out. We had to work slowly, ratcheting each of the bolts out. It's frustrating, but it can be done. Just have patience. After the three bolts have been removed, make sure to remove the factory gasket so it doesn't get damaged or lost. Finally, there is a wiring harness attached to the bottom of the turbo inlet pipe. You can try to remove the bolt at the bottom of the pipe, but I found it was easier to just take a small screwdriver and push the harness off the bracket attached to the inlet pipe. Here's a comparison of the OEM turbo inlet pipe versus the forged turbo inlet pipe. Attach the factory gasket to the forged turbo inlet adapter and install it onto the turbo using the supplied Allen bolts. Make sure the gasket is positioned correctly, as there is a specific way its holes will line up to the new adapter. You will need a 5mm Allen key to screw the bolts into the turbo. After the adapter is secured, install the turbo inlet pipe with the supplied hose clamps loosely. This will allow you to make any adjustments if needed. Now you can take your intake with the filter attached and install it into the turbo inlet pipe. Attach the two breathe hoses at the back of the intake and the diverter pipe at the front of the intake. Once the pipes are all securely attached to the intake, you can screw the factory engine cover bolt back in place. This will help to hold the intake in place. You will need to test the engine cover and readjust the positioning of the intake if the intake is too close to the engine. Before you install the engine cover fully, tighten the two hose clamps holding the turbo inlet pipe to the turbo and intake. This completes the installation process. You're now ready to enjoy more turbo whooshing sounds. Before I show any clips of what the intake sounds like, I want to give my impressions of Forge's products. I bought a lot of performance products over the years, and I must say I was very impressed with Forge's customer service, their quick shipping, and their very nice packaging. I'm not being paid to say this, but I have to commend them on a great product. I'm very happy I chose Forge for my wife's car. I'm sure we will be using their products in the future. Now for the sound clips. We have 6 clips. Each set of 3 has the car in each drive mode except eco mode. 3 are drive-by clips and 3 are revving the car with the hood open. Thank you for watching. Please help me grow my channel by subscribing to the channel, sharing the video, and commenting below.